And welcome in to this week's edition of Broadcaster Hour. I'm Roger Hoover alongside Kyle Crooks, and in the center of the screen we've got Kevin Burkhardt of Fox Sports. And, Kevin, already on this show we have had a couple of University of Tennessee graduates, my alma mater, so it's about time we head to William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey, and have an alma mater and an alum of Kyle's alma mater on. We're definitely glad to have you on today, Kevin.
No, listen, I appreciate it. Kyle and I have to represent, we go back to we got to represent North Jersey here for the little guys like William Patterson, which is a great place. And obviously that's how Kyle and I connected years back. So it's good to represent Willy P, right, Kyle?
That's right. Go Pioneers. And Kevin, I did a lot of radio play-by-play. I did a lot of, football, basketball, baseball, softball for you. When you were at Willy P, what were the sports that you were covering? I'm sure those basic ones. Were you doing some other sports as well? I know you're doing a lot of TV play-by-play back then.
Yeah, we did. The major ones for the most part. We did women's and men's basketball. We did baseball, a little bit of softball, football, obviously. Those were the main ones. And then we did, the big thing then when I was there, we had this show called Newsline, which was on, I can't remember if it was once or twice a week, but, it was like a news, it was like a news program, and we had John Rhodes, who was, a producer at MSNBC helping us run it. We had so many good people behind the scenes, as you know, who helped us learn. That's what was great about the school. It was a small school, but so many really good people who were in the industry who would teach there or assist there running those programs. So we did mostly the main sports when I was there. And, ironically, I didn't get back into television, for a long time after that. It was like my journey after William Patterson was radio. So it's just funny. You never know how things are going to kind of work out. That's why you kind of have to kind of be, open to doing different stuff, I think.
Is that where you fell in love with it at William Patterson, or did you have an idea in high school that you wanted to be a broadcaster? And were you one of those people like me that kind of just hung around the radio station 24 hours a day, or hung around the TV station 24 hours a day?
Yeah, I did. I did have an idea in high school, but it wasn't. I definitely had a thought. That's what I wanted to do. I did, like, on local access, we would do our high school football games. It was one camera, me and another buddy, and a mic. That's what we had. And but that was the start. And I would do that. I would do like play-by-play on Nintendo games when I was younger, all the time. So yeah, I definitely had an idea. But when I went there, it was, honestly, it was just better than I thought it would be. The community, as you know, they're so tight-knit. Everybody, hanging around the radio station, the TV station, that's all they wanted to do. And you became a family, right? And everybody's working their tail off to make it fun and to make it good. So, that was school, basically. So, yeah, that was a great opportunity, and just learned a lot from a lot of good, smart people, and realized how much farther I had to go to be any good as well.
And for you, after your days at Willy P were done, what were some of the steps you took in broadcasting? And as you've talked about before, it was a longer road for you than maybe some other broadcasters.
Yeah, I went exclusively into radio after that. I got a job at a small radio station actually right down the road from William Patterson, this place called WGHT. It was an afternoon daytime radio station, which, unfortunately that station doesn't exist anymore. And, most don't, in our time right now, it's hard to find the small TV and radio station because they're all conglomerates, which is a bummer because got to do everything there. I did, high school sports, promotions, sales. I did it. I got my hand in everything because there weren't that many people that worked there. So yeah, I went the small radio route, and I just kept knocking on doors like a lot of us, right? So I was there for a long time. Then I had some side gigs. I did minor league baseball for a while. Roger, I know obviously you've been down that route, and just anything that would come along the way, but mostly radio stuff. And yeah, I didn't get into TV. I wanted to get into TV, but I finally got back into TV, dabbling a little bit for SNY as a part-time thing in New York. And then that actually led to the Mets job when that became available. So, I kind of went the circuitous route, knocking on doors and doing any radio gig I could find, but I think it made me better along the way. So.
And also in that time, even some time as a car salesman, keeping your broadcasting dreams alive during that time. Just what do you remember about trying to grind, plus also trying to provide for yourself and your family?
Well, it was all of that, right? I mean, I'm sure we've all been there. You have those moments of doubt of like, what are you doing? I had a bunch of friends who were, had really good jobs and making a ton of money in New York and in different fields. And I'm, making 17 grand a year. And I'm just like, what am I doing exactly? You start to doubt yourself. So, after a long time, I guess it was about 8 years in, I just quit and just went to sell cars. It was kind of a rando thing. I put my finger in the middle of the Sunday newspaper in the classified ads and said, my finger landed on a car dealership, and I went in and I got that job and I started selling cars. But it was great motivation to learn. Just learn something about yourself. Like it enabled me to take a step back and then just realize what I really wanted to do. When you're selling a car, you're not going to sell a car if you don't ask for what you want, or you don't, have the skills to deal with people and things like that. I mean, it was always, I think, a sociable person. That wasn't the issue, but I just started asking for what I wanted, and that doesn't always work, but it's not a bad route to go. The worst that people could tell you is no, and I don't think I ever really did that before. Just being a little bit more forceful because I was confident in my ability. So while I was there, I actually ended up getting back in the business and doing some stuff for CBS Radio and then WFAN, and it was the best thing that happened to me. I wouldn't be here without that experience, without that step back and kind of reassess where I was, and it gave me the motivation. And it just, certain core values that I had to kind of re-examine while I was there. You're kind of down and out, and you have to figure out your life a little bit and what you want. So, not to be too philosophical, but it was a pretty big moment in my life.
So then you finally get your foot in the door once again at CBS Radio. Once you get into that door, how do you continue to build momentum? You eventually get the Jets beat reporter job and then to SNY. It just seemed like everything started to snowball rather fast once you got to CBS Radio.
Yeah, I think it was a matter of just people hearing me. When you're working at smaller places, it's hard for people to hear you. They don't hear you, when you're working at a 1,000-watt daytime radio station and doing minor league baseball necessarily. And so it's just a matter of, I started getting some part-time stuff. I had the full-time car job, and luckily my boss there would let me out to do gigs when I got them. And then, once you're on those places, like those places have massive listeners. So then, people hear you and be like, all right, this guy's pretty decent. Maybe you will give him some more shifts. And maybe, when I call and ask about a resume that I send out, they'll actually take 10 seconds to answer the call, or answer the email. So it's all one of those things, like what becomes first, the chicken or the egg, right? It's like when you're sending out your stuff and you're trying to just get somebody to respond, even to tell you that you suck. Just to get attention from somebody, good or bad. So I think the beauty of it was I was doing the car thing full time, but I started to get those part-time things at those bigger places, and people finally heard it. So, now it was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you've got some talent. When this opportunity comes on, maybe we'll try you on that. So, and then things did start to get rolling. So it took a long time, but I think, it's always the thing. You just need one door to open, right? And then when that door opens, can you actually go through it and do what you got to do? So I think for me, it's just the door finally opened. I had some good people that helped me along the way, and luckily I didn't mess it up too bad, essentially.
So then SNY and the Mets job comes about as their clubhouse reporter. You were there for a long time. What was that audition process like for you? And were you stunned when you got that job, or was it something that maybe you were expecting at that point in your career?
I didn't audition for it because I was working, kind of part-time for SNY. I mean, not really part-time. I'd done some stuff freelance for them, some stuff for the Jets while I was covering the Jets for WFAN. I'd gone on their Jet shows. I'd done some things for them. And, Chris Cotter, the first year of SNY, was in the field reporter role and did a great job, but it wasn't what he wanted. He wanted to go a different path. And so, so he left and they put him on a different assignment. And then he eventually went on to do, ESPN and things like that. And so anyway, the job became open. They interviewed me for it, but they kind of knew like what I was about because I was on the network a little bit. So, but I had no audition. I had one interview with Kurt Gowdy Jr., who it was great. We had a great talk. And I thought nothing of it. I really truthfully didn't think of getting the job. I just thought it was cool that they took the time to interview me. I really did. And then I got the call from my agent at the time, and I was like, hey, you got the job. I'm like, what job? It's like, the Mets job. I'm like, what? It was that one interview, and I truly just didn't think I had a shot in the world of getting it. So I just put it out of my mind. So yeah, I was floored when I got it. And, obviously that was a pretty big turning point. I mean, you're doing that for 8 years, and it was great.
We all love getting to meet our heroes in this business or inspirations to get into the business, but then to work alongside them is kind of another story. What can you tell us about getting to know Gary Cohen more and then really him mentoring you along during those 8 years with the Mets?
Yeah, well, he's just a guy that I always looked up to, and when I was coming up and when I was younger, and certainly still do today, and did when we were working together. The best thing is we just became really good friends, and I admire him for who he is, but it's just his work ethic is so damn good. I mean, it's the work he puts in, and he's so good at his craft. It's unbelievable. So, the cool thing about it, I mean, look, I'm a hard worker, so I've never had that issue, but I always wanted to work hard because I didn't want to let him down. He knows everything. You're doing a broadcast, he knows everything. So when I would join the broadcast, when they would, turn my mic on, I wanted to come with something that either he can continue the conversation or maybe even he didn't know. So, I wanted to put in the work. I forget what everyone else thought, but I wanted him to be impressed. And that's the truth. So it's pretty cool. It's like, when you're, it's like you're playing golf with somebody, you're playing somebody who's really good. You don't want to get embarrassed, so you want to kind of hold your own. So and it still is a great relationship. I mean, I love Gary. He was somebody that I look up to, but also someone who would, help me. When I was doing baseball play-by-play, I had never done it on I hadn't done baseball play-by-play on television since William Patterson. It had been a long time, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd done it on radio. It's just totally different. So he would critique me because his whole history was in radio. So he would help me out and be like, hey, like this was great. Or, I noticed this, maybe try doing this. So that speaks to the kind of guy that he is. I mean, I can't say enough about how much fun it was to do that with him. We just had a great relationship. I think that's, we all did. I think that's why the broadcast part of it, why it worked so well, because we all were really close and really respected each other.
So when you had those opportunities to do Met spring training games or some fill-in work for Gary during the regular season as a play-by-play announcer, just how much did you enjoy those assignments, and it kind of light the fire even more for you to take your next step?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It was fun. I mean, of course I wanted to do more play-by-play, but I mean, I never had an illusion that was in the cards with Gary because he's a workhorse. He doesn't take off too often. So I did a ton of spring training games, and then I did a handful of games each year, which was great. And then Fox started using me here and there to do a game or two, like a Met game or two that was on Fox. They would have me do it. And so I was really just wanted to do more just to get reps, to get better. So yeah, I totally cherish those, but I really liked, the ability to be versatile. I cherish the ability to do play-by-play, to do the field reporting, and to studio host. Like people earlier in my career is like, well, you got to pick one, you got to be good at one. And I didn't believe that. And, now I do all those things, and I think that's why I'm here. So, I'm a big believer in that, in diversifying. So yeah, Roger, I enjoyed doing the play-by-play, but I really enjoyed doing all of it. I think it made me a better broadcaster.
What were some of the tips that Gary did give you, or some of the things that you were thinking about when you were first entering that play-by-play realm with the Mets and then doing some fill-in stuff with Fox? What were some things that you were working on that you were trying to iron out?
Well, I think you just have to find your own style. With other sports like, say, football and basketball, you guys know, there's a cadence, there's a clock, there's a timing. So yes, you have to have your own style there, of course, but there's also a structure where it's like ba ba ba. You talk, analyst talks. There's structured times for the most part when that normally happens. Baseball, there's not. Baseball, there's none of that. It's the complete opposite of that. So you have to find your comfort level. There's so many elements to it. Your comfort level in the cadence of the game, in storytelling, in when to talk, when not to talk, in when to use stats, when not to use stats, all of that. It's just different. So for me, it was really just finding the comfort level. I always thought I was pretty decent at it, but then it was just getting better. So, really, I mean, honestly, it took me till, maybe 2 years ago when I really felt like, okay, like this is like, now I feel really good where I am. Like I kept tinkering every year a little bit, whether it was with prep or certain things I did on the broadcast. And I think that's good. I think we always should be tinkering, right? Like we're always trying to get better. So it was just an ongoing thing. It's just way different than doing the other sports. And I hadn't done much of it on TV. So it was really about finding the cadence and your comfort level and things that work for you. I think there's a lot of copycats. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I think you have to be yourself. There's some people that have a signature call, and that's totally cool. I don't really have one. And I never thought about one. So that's just me. It wasn't my jam. So, I think you just have to be you. You have to find what works for you. So that was like the thing. And just really, Gary was good about like mechanical things and certain things about, hey, do this, or I would avoid this, or watch out here. Like I would call, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but, never had this problem on radio, but with TV, I would almost anticipate something happening early on. So let's say a guy hits it in the gap. It's going to be a double, right? Well, one time, I basically call the guy's got a double and he almost gets thrown out. So, they're like, all right, you gotta wait till he's there. You know what I mean? We're in radio reality. No one's seeing it. So you can kind of do that and, kind of fudge it a little bit. So it was just like little things like that, timing things, all those things that you're just constantly working to get better on.
And the timing's a little bit different with the NFL, just with the speed of the game. So you said it, you did your first football on television with that Jets-Bucks game, I believe it was, at MetLife, which was a really good game. And that was your first television football play-by-play since college. Were there any other people that you were leaning on at that point in time, specifically for football, just to get some sort of advice? And Kevin, what are you telling yourself going into that game and maybe the final minutes of such an exciting game like that?
Yeah, there was a lot to it. I mean, that NFL on Fox is like I always dreamed about it. Like I grew up Madden and Summerall. Like that's like I lived for that. In my house. So we were a big football watching house growing up, and so my first game, and then they put me in New York, which, where I'm from. So it was a home game for me, but also more pressure. It's the New York market, right? But in a way, it kind of calmed me because, I'd been working in New York for years and kind of had, quote unquote fans and supporters in New York. So I felt comfortable with that. So, yeah, initially it was just, I kind of had even though I hadn't done a TV football game since William Patterson, I did a ton of radio football games. And I knew what I wanted to do. Like I had watched enough of Pat Summerall and to know what I wanted, and that was not to talk too much, really, I'm big on that. Like I don't want to over talk, and so I knew in my head what I wanted to do, and then really I just relied so hard on Pete Macheska and Artie Kempner, our producer and director, who are great, and they just gave me not overload, just a couple small things to remember, and they let me go, and the end of the game, it's super close, and that's where like a good producer like Pete was in my ear. Just a couple things like, all right, kiddo, remember, where do they have to get to kick the field goal? Keep an eye on timeouts. Just a couple quick things in my ear, like just to not lose track of, because you're like, oh my God, you're nervous, like your first game, you don't want to boss the end of the game on national TV and in New York, and so it was just small stuff, but just like calming, like just a couple little tidbits to kind of get me through it. And then I got through it, and it was a blast. So I was a little nervous at the beginning, just but butterflies, really. It wasn't like, I guess by that point I kind of felt ready for it. I wasn't a kid, I had been around a long time. So if I had just come out of William Patterson and got that job, I probably would have been, probably would have been soiling myself. But so yeah, it was great. And then I got through that, and I was like, all right, I can do this. Like, I felt really, really good.
Sticking with football, can you take us through for a regular season Fox NFL game, the week of preparation you do, and what's most important for you to put on your board for Sunday?
It's a lot. I mean, you guys know. I mean, look, football it's a different deal. There's I don't know. 30 hours of prep that goes into it before you do a game, whatever it is. Everyone has their routine. So in a nutshell, for sake of timing, basically when I get on a plane Sunday from where I'm at, I start prepping for the next game. And so I'm going through, I have a database that I keep on all the teams. And so I save notes and save things like throughout the year on every team. So, I just start reading a ton. Sunday night, Monday, I just read a ton and go back and go through my database and just take notes, read articles, everything I get my hands on. Tuesday, I start watching some of their past games, see what they're doing, see who's playing, see what personnel packages they use, see maybe the storylines that the other broadcasters have done the last week or two, because I don't want to necessarily repeat those to death. Because while you're getting every week the games go to different areas of the country, they're also going to the diehard fan bases. So you don't want to bludgeon the same storyline to death. So just paying attention to stuff like that. And then Wednesday, I'll usually start working on my stuff. So Wednesday, I have my friend Matt Park from Syracuse, who helps put these boards together for me, like the skeleton version. He does a great job with it. And then I go through and I go through all my notes, through the things that the team send, and just flat out Google and put things that I think are interesting in there. The things that I wouldn't say there's a specific thing for each player that I have. Each player is a little different. Like I go more for storyline. So I'm not just jamming a million stats in there. I'm going, for what they were. Did they lead the league? Or the last 2 games, have they had 20 catches? Or, what's their backstory? My biggest thing is having, by the time the game rolls around, having something on every player, because inevitably the last person on the roster will, block a field goal and return it for a touchdown. And you have to know who that is. So, Wednesday I'm grinding on that, Thursday grinding on that. Usually Thursday we fly out to the cities. And then Friday morning we go to the home team's practice and we get access to their coaches and players, which is great. We get a lot of insight there. Saturday we do the visiting team. And then Saturday night we have a big production meeting with our crew. So we go over video, what we have on tap, video for the game that we can use. We don't have to, but some of the special things that our crew has made during the week. Graphics, we go over all those graphics. Sorry for these pop-ups on my phone. I don't know if they come across on Skype, but
good. I don't think so. You're good.
Okay. So we go through all these graphics and everything, and then we just talk about it. Like, hey, do we like this? Do we like that? If I'm like, I don't love that graphic because I don't really think it's in, displays how they've been playing or whatever, we toss it. So, and then we're ready for the game. We wake up and do the game, and it's like studying for a midterm. If you studied and you're ready, the game is a blast and it's fun. You're ready to go. And there's just constant communication. The difference with radio and TV is radio, it's you basically. And in television, it's a team, constant communication. Your analyst, sideline person, producer, director, people are constantly talking to each other. What do we want to do next? All right, after this play, we're going to do this. We've got a game break here. We're going to roll this packages, and after this play, if it's not a big play, it's just constantly talking to make the broadcast good. So the team element is really, really fun. But Dan, the bottom line is the preparation doesn't stop. I stop it Saturday night because otherwise you could just go over the cliff. You could just read, and watch till the cows come home because the information is overload. So Saturday night when I go to bed, that's the end of it. I don't prep at all Sunday morning. I just show up to the game. That's kind of the way to clear my mind. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but hopefully it answered the question.
Yeah, it's exactly what we wanted. And for me, my final question is, you mentioned television, such a team thing. That's why I love calling games on TV so much. What's the best way for you to be a good teammate? Any tips on being a really good teammate as the play-by-play announcer to help make sure you're helping set up everyone else and making sure they can do what they want to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to listen. I think everything we do in this industry is people listening or not listening, right? So number one, you have to listen to your analyst and know what they want. The most important thing is your analyst. You have to listen to what they're saying and also know what's important to them. You know, if they maybe miss a point or they start talking about something and something big happens, get back to it, you know, later in the game. So you have to listen. And then the other thing, which took me a while, is just, it's also like, you know, no matter what is going on behind the scenes and we all work together, you're the one that's spitting it out. So if you don't believe in something or you don't want to do something, at least, you know, for me, I'm like, I don't want to do that because it's coming out of my mouth, you know? So I think it's important, to listen to your analyst, certainly your producer, director, that's huge. But then I think you have to have your own voice. Like it is you who's in front of the mic and on camera. So if you don't feel convicted about something or some feature that you want to run or whatever, then I don't think you should run it, you know? So I think it's all those things. But if you're asking me the number one, it's got to be listening. I think there's so many people, especially young broadcasters, that don't listen to who's next to them. And that is maybe the gravest mistake you can do in this industry, in my opinion.
That's one that I think about every time I watch back a TV game that I do, is that I sometimes tend to just go on to another point after an analyst says something that really enhances a broadcast. But final one for me, Kevin. But it's hard though, right?
Yeah, it is. You're thinking about, okay, where I got to go next. And like, there's a lot going on. Maybe your producer's telling you, hey, go here next. So you're trying to traffic cop. It's hard. It's not an easy thing, but it's a must.
And this is a good way to wrap it up, Kevin. Advice to someone who hasn't had an easy ride in this business, it hasn't gone the way that they've wanted. How do they stay positive to their dreams and accomplish everything, say, that you have at a network level? They know they can get there, but they just haven't had the breaks. What's the advice for that person?
I think I think the most important thing is there are two things that go hand in hand. I know it's a little bit cheesy, but you truly have to follow your dreams. Like, all three of us would not be doing this if we weren't big sports fans and didn't dream of calling the big game and just being involved in some way with sports, right? I mean, that's why we're all doing this. So I think you have to follow it, no matter how hard it is, no matter the bumps you hit along the road. It's hard. You have to have thick skin. You're going to get told no a lot. There's going to be a lot of doors closed in your face. There's going to be a lot of doors that will never open. It's a very difficult thing. But you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, we get to play in the toy bin. You know, we get paid for that. So I think the only caveat to that is being true to yourself, right? Like, there's a point where maybe you've been doing it for a long time, like I was, and you're down on yourself like I was, and you have to put it this way, if you're confident in yourself, if you can be true to yourself, be like, you know what, I really am confident in my ability, I think I'm good enough to do this, then you have to keep going. Because for me, I just didn't want to get to be 60 years old and regret it. Like, if I went hard and just failed and I thought I got to the end of my rope and like I'm doing something else, I would have been totally cool with it. But if I gave up, like when I went to sell the cars, I would have been so regretful the rest of my life. So you just don't want to have regrets. You get to the point where it's not working for you, or you want to make different money, or family things change. Well, okay, well that's fine. You move on, and that's okay. But I think as long as it's in your heart, I think you have to push forward. It's just a special industry. That may be a little cheesy, but that's truthfully how I've always felt about it.
Well, what a great way to end things. Kevin, we certainly appreciate your time on Broadcaster Hour today, and we can't wait until the next time we get to hear you call a game again, whether it's baseball or the NFL. We really are looking forward to it, but certainly thank you for your time today, Kevin.
Let's all three of us be calling games again soon, huh? I mean, I would really, really, really like that. No, guys, I appreciate you having me on, and listen, best to you. And Kyle, it's good to talk to you again, buddy. Continued success to both of you guys, okay?
Thanks so much, Kevin.
And thanks for watching this week's episode of Broadcaster Hour.